recording, Jim Pal?
Yes.
Nice.
It's cold. Oh yeah, no, there was.
Like cold water.
Waiting for you to shine. People passing me by. Does it feel like I belong? Trying to keep it alive. Always on the inside for a better confirmation that I'm heading for the station. And I can feel love is real. Now you try. If you're willing to just come along with me.
Hi, I am Brandon Pierce and I am a student at Westminster High School in Westminster, Colorado.
And I'm Dakota Hall. We are both students in the Aerospace Engineering program here, and this year we had the most amazing opportunity to work with NASA on a year-long industry-sponsored project.
In July of 2022, we attended the NASA Impact Science Team meeting in Boulder, Colorado. There we learned about the impact study from the heads of the project, Vidal Salazar and Lynn McMurdy. We also had the chance to talk with a number of college students.
That 0C on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, you can see how long it's taking that front to propagate and pass through the area.
Scientists and engineers who were working on the projects for their study.
Applying this to a winter storm, I wanted a visualization that really kind of spoon-fed the data out to me.
And we even had the chance to interview one of the former ER-2 high-altitude plane pilots.
It's the most difficult airplane in the world to fly.
We listened and observed as they presented their findings on various topics. The science discussed was incredibly detailed and high level, but we did our best to try and understand what they were talking about.
The second panel shows you the Doppler velocity, and it folded over once. I estimated that it was about 10 meters per second or more.
We spoke to several college students who were presenting their projects to better understand how we could one day make our own path to join NASA.
And where it does that, we actually see the smallest and most dense particles in a microscope. The opposite of what we expect.
All in all, this meeting helped set the tone for the overall project we were embarking on. We learned about the high-altitude ER-2 and the P-3 Orion that would fly in tandem pattern to collect data.
What we didn't know was that one of us was going to get the chance to fly on the P-3 alongside the NASA crew and scientists. That would turn into an opportunity we would never forget.
I'm Lynn McMurdy from the University of Washington, and I'm what's called the principal investigator for the project called the Investigation of Microphysics and Precipitation of Atlantic Coast Threatening Snowstorms. As a principal investigator, I oversee the entire project. So I have a large team of scientists that work with me from universities and also from NASA Goddard and other NASA institutions. And we do everything for this project. We are designing how to do the observations or observational strategy, how to analyze the data, how to make new scientific breakthroughs with the data. I also was very involved in the planning long before the project came along. So I almost do everything, but I let other people do all the nitty-gritty, and I get to see, kind of stand back and let the great team that I have do all the real hard work of the project.
So the project is IMPACTS. I'm the scientific project manager for this campaign. So IMPACTS is a campaign that is managed by NASA, and we're trying to understand the microphysics of precipitation, specifically the snow type precipitation. So IMPACTS, is a multi-agency, multi-facility campaign. We are deploying all the way from people from all over the United States, and we have some international collaboration as well. But we have universities throughout the United States participating in this campaign. They bring their expertise to the campaign. They bring their instruments. They bring their students. They work with us to collect measurements of snow-related events.
My name's Aaron Pina. I am an associate program scientist at NASA headquarters in Washington, D.C. I help in the running of NASA Earth science programs, especially related to weather. If we think about some of these measurements that are required from the planes, we think about, so on the wingtip, they're called wingtip probes. The probe is what's used to measure cloud droplets. So if we think about the size distribution of which the CDP, the Cloud Droplet Probe, occupies, that range is something like 2 to 50 micrometers. Mechanical pencils are either 0.5 or 0.7 millimeters in diameter. That's the lead in that diameter. That 0.7 millimeters is 700 micrometers. So 700 microns. And if you think about something like the Cloud Droplet Probe measuring 2 to 50 micrometers, you could fit something like 10 to 15 of those little droplets that we're trying to measure across the diameter of the thread that comes out of this mechanical pencil.
Hello, Jen. Is it possible for you to tell us what you do in this campaign?
In this campaign, I am coordinating the airplanes, trying to get them flying over the same stretch of real estate, looking at the same snowflake that's falling in the storm.
And we've learned that you were a former pilot for the ER-2 plane. Can you give us a little insight of what that experience was like?
It's a very challenging airplane to fly. The airplane book Jane's, which is a reference for airplanes, describes it as the most difficult airplane in the world to fly. There's only one pilot. It's a single engine airplane, and it flies very high, roughly in the neighborhood of 65,000 feet above the earth. So you're quite high, you can see a long ways. It requires precision flying. It's a challenge.
Why were you interested at first? So obviously, since NASA is the big astronautical stuff, why would you bring this to NASA in the first place?
Well, NASA is interesting, and not only do they go out in space, but they're also interested in studying how the Earth, the globe, where we live, works. And they have a lot of satellites up in space. And one series of satellites measures precipitation from space. It's very hard to do, especially snowing or frozen precipitation. That's actually, the physics of it is really difficult. So they need to know, we need to have ground measurements and in the air measurements of snowfall. And we need to be able to relate that to our remote sensing instrumentation. So our observational strategy is to have a high-flying aircraft that has instruments just like what's on the satellite. And then underneath it is another aircraft that has in situ, they're measuring actually the parts of the clouds and what's called microphysics. That's what those little tiny parts, we can't see them with our eyes, or we can see them a little bit, like when they get big enough to fall on your sleeve as dendrites and such. Those are little particles that were originally in the cloud. So we need to relate those two together. With aircraft, we can tell it where to go, and we go over and over again, so we get a lot of variety of measurements. So NASA's interested in being able to improve their measurements from space. And I'm interested in storms. I love storms. I love any kind of storms, and I especially love them when they're raining or snowing or anything fun like that. So that's why I'm involved.
What is the purpose of impacts, and why is NASA so involved in weather when we've seen them be so involved in space?
Space, yes. NASA is known for space research. We have astronauts. Trips to Mars, but very few people know that NASA has a lot of investing on Earth research, because Earth is where we live, right? Why NASA cares about the weather? Because the weather affects you and affects me, affects everybody that lives in the world, not just the United States. NASA is interested in understanding better the weather patterns that are affecting us. Impacts is a very specific campaign because we're trying to understand how much snow falls in the ground. Right now, you see in the Weather Channel, for example, you see forecasting like it's gonna fall 3 inches of snow here, or it's gonna fall just traces of snow. So the difference between traces and a few inches of snow has very important economic potential, right? So you might not be able to go to work because there's a lot of snow on the ground, but you could plan better for your day if you knew the forecast was accurate. So what we're trying to do with impacts is improve the way that we're forecasting the snow, to improve, economical improvements, like, you can plan for your day better, logistics, people, that are moving people across the United States, aviation safety. I mean, there's the outreach of this campaign is very, very broad.
cleft. You see two kind of areas up there that are lakes is what they are.
We are going to use a plane in putting our projects on the plane.
This is an RB-12. Okay, it's a experimental light sport aircraft. Okay, that's the title of it. It is built by students. If you look in the cockpit there, what you won't see is round dials like we see in the movies. You'll see round dials, airspeed, altimeter, all sorts of different things, all computer screens. This is a 2-passenger. It only holds 20 gallons of fuel, but I only burned about 3 gallons per hour.
We're gonna fly our projects on a plane. He's gonna pick a few to go on the outside of the plane.
Ferguson, are we ready for take 2?
I'm ready, and I'm gonna fly this time. Yeah!
All right, thumbs up, ready to go. We test the kids' equipment. Let's go. You get in a car, you just turn the ignition on, put your seatbelt on, drive away.
Right.
Well, we do 3 major checks.
Okay.
External pre-flight, which I've already done before my first flight.
Right.
Then we do the engine start. Then we taxi over there to do the engine runway.
Okay.
So there's really 3 checks we do every single time we fly. All right, grab your headset there.
Okay.
Good check. Let's put it on. Right, so the passenger brief is that we need to get out, unhook yourself, make sure you take your headset off. You go that way, I go that way. You don't go that way because the prop could still be spinning.
Sounds good.
And fire bottle between us, we need it. If I raise my hand, that means I've got to make a radio call.
Ancestor 394 Sierra Papa, Centennial ground, pass banded Challenger on Alpha, correction, follow Challenger on Alpha.
All right, we'll turn the master switch on.
Yeah. See ya.
Come on back.
All right, we'll get it down. Ready? Come on. Put the fuel pump on. Just track the throttle a little bit. See the runway? You can see he's out there. So we can actually follow him on the air. Oh, see this other airplane? Watch this. Southwest Airlines Flight 1860 to Boeing 737. He's at 9,100 feet. He's doing 257 miles an hour. He's going into Denver.
What did we think, Mr. Ferguson?
That's fun.
Did we have fun?
It was great.
Yay!
Our first ever flying on an airplane experiments. Made it. Yay! Congratulations, everybody.
Hi, I'm Levi Hallberg, and like Brandon, I'm a student in the Aerospace Engineering program here at Westy. Our first trip with the NASA Impacts project came in December, when Brandon and I, along with Mr. Ferguson, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Williams, and the video production crew, caught a flight to sunny California. We landed in Burbank, and we were able to spend the day getting to explore Los Angeles.
There's a cool part of the trip where we got to drive around and see some major tourist attractions in the area, but we didn't want to spoil it. Here is our video crew from the Video Cinema Arts program to tell you more.
Hi, my name is Angela Scaval-Leva, and I am a third-year student in the VCA program.
Hi, I'm Giselle Ventura, and I'm also in my third year of the program.
We were really excited about the trip because it was the first time either of us had flown on a plane.
Once we had all our stuff, Mr. Williams and the others surprised us by taking us to Hollywood. We got to walk around and see all the stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We stopped at the famous TCL Chinese Theater to see the handprints and autographs. And we even saw them getting ready for a Disney movie premiere for the new National Treasure film.
We also got to drive around downtown LA, we went to Beverly Hills, and even drove up to the Griffith Observatory where we took lots of pictures with the Hollywood sign and the city. We never thought we would ever get to see so many cool things that had to do with our film program on this trip.
At the end of the trip, we even got to go to the Santa Monica Pier, right at the end of Route 66, to see all the things happening there. We even got to put our food in the ocean.
It was really cold. So that's it for us. Back to you, Levi.
That was such a cool part of the trip, and the water was really cold. Anyway, after we toured LA, we hit the road to drive to Palmdale, California to start our project at the Armstrong Flight Research Center.
This is where we would be for the next 3 days, and we were so excited to get to work. Every day we drove there from our hotel to meet Vidal. After clearing security, we were allowed into a giant hangar where they stored and worked on planes used for the IMPACTS project.
No kidding, this place was huge. They had 5 different planes inside. There were 2 ER-2s, NASA's DC-8 Airborne Science Laboratory, and the Queen of the Sky, Sophia.
Sophia, or the Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy, is a Boeing 747 SP aircraft modified to carry a 2.7-meter reflecting telescope. It was there in preparation for retirement, and we were fortunate enough to get a personal tour of this beautiful plane before it flew to its final destination at the Pima Air and Space Museum in Tucson, Arizona.
That was very cool, but not as cool as getting to talk to all the scientists and engineers as they work to get the ER-2 loaded with all the scientific equipment they need for the upcoming IMPACT flights. Everyone was incredibly nice, and they were willing to talk to us and explain what they were doing on the project.
Here we are at the Armstrong Flight Research Center. We hope you enjoyed as much as we did. Hi Lynn, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. So we are here at the Armstrong NASA facility in Palmdale, California. Can you explain what you guys are doing here with the ER-2 plane?
So the ER-2 plane is one of our planes for the IMPACTS project. It flies very high, and on the plane has remote sensing instrumentation, and we're here because we're putting that instrumentation onto the plane and getting it ready to fly in flights in January.
How did an IMPACT start?
Well, IMPACT starts as an idea and a discussion between several scientists, like, wow, we really need to know more about snowstorms and how the snow is distributed inside the storms and why is it distributed in these narrow band structures. We really need to make measurements. So we thought there was an opportunity, what they call a call for proposals. And so my other team members and I wrote a very large proposal, gathered other team members, like people who had expertise in particular instruments, put it forward, crossed our fingers, and thankfully we got selected.
Do you have any words of wisdom for the future generations who want to go into something in the engineering realm?
Oh, this is exciting. So I have lots of words of wisdom. One of them is to be passionate and excited about the world. There's so much to learn and so many things that the younger generation can bring. So we always tell people advice, you got to get your fundamentals like the sciences and the math. But in addition to that, art, music, and communication, those are all important fields to study and learn from. But I think passion and enthusiasm and determination are the really main things that you need to bring to the field. Things don't always go the way you want, so you got to be determined to try again. Don't give up.
Thank you so much for this conversation, and we hope the ER-2 and the P3 have a successful mission.
Me too, for sure.
Can you tell us just a little bit about your role here with the NASA IMPACTS project?
I'm the project manager for the ER-2 aircraft, and for IMPACTS we help integrate the instruments and make sure that we're prepared to fly in the areas that we're looking to, that we're approved for the areas that we want to fly into.
Any advisement for the the next generation of STEM kids, of kids pursuing careers in engineering, science.
To start is figure out what you're mostly interested in, what inspires you, what motivates you, and see how that could possibly develop into a career. It doesn't have to be even through school. It can be external resources, getting involved with clubs and stuff that kind of go with that type of interest that you have.
Hi Nikki, how are you?
I'm good, how are you doing?
Good. What is your role at NASA?
My primary role is as an operations engineer, and basically what that means is I'm responsible for the airworthiness of the aircraft I've been assigned to.
Cool.
In my case, that's the DC-8, and it's a flying science laboratory, kind of like the ER-2, except all the scientists get to fly along with their instruments.
Talking with you yesterday, you said that you had a crazy journey which led you to NASA. Could you give a brief explanation of how your journey is?
Sure, yeah. So when I first graduated from high school, I got low grades in my STEM classes. I was not good at math or physics, and so I said, that's not for me. So when I went to college, I did an English degree. And it was great, but really an English degree prepares you to go back to school, right? To either be a teacher or to go to law school. And neither of those paths were something I was interested in. I kind of bounced around to different jobs for quite a while before deciding that I really wanted to do was work at NASA. And so I thought, if I want to work at NASA, how do I get there? The easiest way is to be an engineer. And so I went back to school 10 years after my first bachelor's degree to get a second bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. I finally graduated about 3 years ago and started out as an intern actually while I was going to school here at the Armstrong Flight Research Center. And I did that for 3 years, and as soon as I graduated, they hired me full time, and that's how I got here.
Hi Vidal, how are you?
Very good, nice to see you.
Good. First off, what did you graduate with?
Well, my bachelor's is in organic chemistry. I did organic chemistry back in Mexico. And then I did a master's in astrophysics and planetary science.
With those degrees, how have they helped you get to where you're at today?
Yeah, science, because all of my degrees are in science. So researching, participating with colleagues, talking about issues that we want to investigate, resolve. Right now I'm a project manager, and I'm responsible for deploying the ER2 and the P3. But I started being one of the instrument people. For example, I had my own instrument before. I was the instrument operator. I did the data acquisition. I did the data quality control. I make sure that all the data was correct. My career kind of kept advancing as I was getting more and more involved in these fields campaigns. I've been fortunate enough to work with many different cultures. So all of that, all of those little skills kind of help me, plan for a campaign, not only here in the U.S. but internationally as well.
Can you explain what we are doing here with the ER2 plane?
So we're in the middle of a project integration. So this is when all the instruments that are going to be participating on the field campaign for impacts, they get mounted on the airplane. And once they're mounted, then we go and test everything and make sure that all the instruments are collecting good information so we can go and collect our data set.
How many test flights have you guys done in the past?
For this one, we already conducted one, and it was just to test the engines and make sure that everything is working with the ER2. And again, once the instruments are mounted, then we'll go ahead and maybe fly another 2 or 3 missions just to make sure that all the instruments are collecting really good data.
You were talking about how many institutions and universities gets their instruments installed on the ER2. How do you guys go with having those scientists get their instruments first, seen and installed?
Each instrument serves a purpose. So for example, the ER2 has a lot of laser type of instruments, radar type of instruments. So depending on the scientific objective, in this case, impacts is about snow bands, snow formations, clouds, and precipitation. So we have a lot of instruments that measure clouds, measure precipitation, and they work and they develop these instruments, and then they put it in airplanes like this.
We have been doing the weather balloon launch for the last 3 or 4 years. We work with Edge of Space Science, a group that is helping us out with the launch today. We also partner with NASA, and we take all of the data that we collect over the next couple of hours, and we use that to analyze our projects. It could be anything from a GPS sensor to an altitude sensor to a thermal sensor. There's just a bunch of different projects that each one of the students have created, and we're trying to collect that data and then analyze it against what the results are for the day today.
Okay, you're gonna swing around and make them line up this way. Right where I'm standing. There we go. And now we're gonna line up. All right, make sure your payloads are turned on.
We're ready. You ready? Yeah, let's do it.
Kind of stay underneath it as best you can. Don't let the line hit the ground. Just kind of keep it somewhat taut. Don't hold it tight. Have a nice little grasp like you're holding a baby. Good. And then just let it go when it gets above you.
How will I know when I need to like...
It'll just come right out of your hands.
Okay.
Payload 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
All right, nice job everybody. That was a wonderful launch. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go retrieve it. If you are coming along for the actual retrieval of it, just make sure that you guys are following those 2 cars, okay? So I'm gonna follow him. It is Mr. Jim. He's got the red jacket on right there. So that is gonna be our leader. When we get out in the middle of nowhere, remember, service kind of gets a little spotty out there. So there's gonna be a big line of cars going out there. You need to kind of make sure that you're staying really close to the group.
No, yeah, we should give at least a heads up.
Okay, I'm gonna leave you guys here.
Okay.
And
thank you.
Yeah.
So they're just getting cut off.
So there's two of our guys here.
Okay.
And they'll coordinate
Oh, they're
with you as
still
far
here.
as going out.
Okay, great.
Okay.
NASA guy, he's going to take all of your guys' collected data, and I'm going to send him a couple of projects, and then he's going to analyze those. Those will be in it, so they'll get to meet him.
How did your guys' project turn out?
Pretty good, I guess. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to it. I mean, something's shaking in there.
That's to be expected when you drop something from 60,000 feet. 90,000 feet.
You guys made it to like 92, I think.
Bye.
My name is Vidal Salazar, and I work for NASA. I'm a project specialist with NASA for the last 7 years. I live here in Denver, but I telecommute to San Francisco on a regular basis. And whenever I have meetings or whenever I have to be in the office, then I travel to San Francisco. The balloon took off from Deer Trail. We have 2 plots together, right? So one that goes up and one that goes down. And if you notice, the balloon the balloon starts over here and it ends over there. So the dynamics of this area are completely different from that area, right? So you want to separate them from up and down. So then you can start looking at like what happened when the balloon went up and went down. And the first thing that you can observe, is this big temperature inversion. So you launch the balloon from here, and immediately the temperature dropped from 4 degrees to -4. So that was a big temperature inversion. So that was your first observation, the temperature inversion.
When you remember that day, how warm was it that day?
It was very cold.
It was really cold, right? Yeah. So it was even colder above us.
The temperature inversion was a pretty thick one. You know, it lasted from 55 to 7,000 feet. So it was a very hefty temperature inversion. And then as soon as you hit about 7,000 feet, you get into a lot of turbulence. So what do you think that was? Wind and clouds. Maybe clouds. So, you know, it's very important to do, when you're making those measurements, you know, this day was cloudy, this day was rain, so you can explain a little bit better. You might be already like hitting the cloud base, and cloud bases are usually very turbulent, especially in the winter time. And then what happened over here? The balloon, the temperature went up, and then it dropped down, and then it went up again. So the temperature went down, and then the balloon went down, and then went up. So, you know, the dynamics of the atmosphere are very complicated, right? But inside of the cloud, there's convective processes that push the air up, and then the air, of course, has to come down on the other side. So maybe your balloon got entangled in one of those convection flows that pushed it up, and then suddenly pushed it back down, and then slowly went up again. That observations, all these little things, we're observing just from a single plot, just from the temperature versus altitude plot. Could you imagine if we have more instruments? Can you imagine all the things that we can tell about the atmosphere and all the things that we're observing? All that information, we want to use it for benefit, right? So like for impacts, we're trying to forecast better how much snow is falling, right? And that's why, you know, campaigns like Impact, you know, they have a full suite, they have hundreds of instruments inside of the airplane, and they put all this information to try to explain all this phenomena.
Hi, I'm Angel Martinez-Rome, and this is Tristan Castillo. We are both third-year students with WHS Video Cinema Arts program.
We were selected to go on the trip to Wallops Island, Virginia to visit the NASA Wallops Flight Facility and to record the incredible things going on there.
We were able to visit the entire complex, and we were given behind-the-scenes tours of the hangar where they were prepping the P-3 Orion for its mission. The same plane would also carry our friends from the Aerospace Engineering program with them on an official NASA mission. We also got to see the Mission Operations Control Center where they launch rockets.
They also gave us tours of the rocket construction facility, the NASA Balloon Program Office, where they build high-altitude balloons. We were also able to explore the island and see the world-famous Chincoteague ponies on an incredible boat tour.
It's a trip we'll never forget for sure.
Here are Dakota and Leanna to tell you about what it is like to fly on the P-3 Orion for an actual NASA science mission.
It's not fair that we didn't get to go.
Next time, pal. Next time.
Thanks, guys. Don't be too sad. 8 hours on a flight without snacks isn't all fun and games. Trust us.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty cool. I'm Leanna Rowan, and Dakota and I were super excited about going on the P-3 Orion flight.
We weren't so excited about waking up at 3 in the morning to do it, but that's the sacrifice you have to make for science. When we got to Wallops facility, we had to watch safety videos so we knew what we had to do when there was an emergency.
That's when it started to hit home that what we were doing was real. They even went through the order that we had to go if we made an emergency landing and had to evacuate the plane.
It was a little scary, but I was still really excited. When we finally boarded the plane and they took roll call to make sure everyone was there, I was nervous and excited because it was really happening.
Robert, Leanna, and Dakota.
We took off while the sun was still coming up, and it was beautiful. It took us a couple of hours of flying to get to where the science team was going to start collecting data, and a lot of us took naps.
And we flew all the way to Michigan, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes. Once we got to our destination, the pilots began flying back and forth through the clouds, and that's when things got exciting for the scientists.
We were able to talk to the impact scientists while they were collecting data in real time, and they explained to us exactly what they were seeing with their experiments. This is when we made the connection that the Arduino experiments that we built collected the same kind of data that we were looking at.
When we finally got back to Wallops Flight Facility, 8 hours later, we were exhausted but excited. We met some incredible people and learned more about weather, microphysics, and the environment than we ever thought possible.
Everyone in our team was excited to see us back safely, and we were ready for a nap.
No kidding, I was so tired.
Same, but it's all an experience that I know we'll never forget. Thank you, NASA.
It is very early in the morning. We are already here and it's 4:18 a.m. This is dedication. Let's roll. Fidel, why'd you make us get up this early?
I know it's too early.
It's way too early.
We have morning bread here.
Yeah. The coffee hasn't kicked in at all. There's the rest of our team coming.
Here's home.
Welcome everybody, Impact Science Flight. Oh wait. This is where we're going today. We're heading up to Michigan. We'll go up there, we'll do probably 6 back and forth. If the ER2 can take off, any updates on those things, we can give a call at 6. So we may or may not be with the ER2 today. It doesn't change anything for us, except it'll make it a little easier to keep our timings exactly. Ditching procedures, for those who have been flying, we won't go into detail about it. Just remember you got the placard on board. Keep your hands out, check which side you get out. If we do have to ditch over water, you're just going to get out into the raft. And there's your emergency suit. And then keep in mind, you'll get on in the emergency suit, then you'll put on your Switlick, which is your life-preserving vest. And stand by, and we'll hop out into the raft and wave at the rescuers.
Dakota Hall, Westminster High School. How do you feel about this mission that we're going to complete today?
Nervous and excited.
Nervous and excited.
Embarrassed.
Diana, how do you feel about this mission?
I'm excited.
As excited as Dakota?
That? More excited than
More excited. I love it. I'm going to zoom in on you.
Hold on.
Just so you know, if you get one of these, it went on this flight. February 23rd, 2023, we are on NASA's P3 airplane. Here we go.
This right here is actually just the visualization for our flight track. So this is basically just waypoints that will fly out to the area that we're going to be doing our basically a wall pattern where we fly back and forth at different altitudes.
Where in the world is Dakota Hall?
Right there.
We're not in Ohio anymore.
We're in Canada. We're in Canada, like
Canada.
Almost at Detroit. Almost Detroit.
Are you guys ready for the bumpy ride now?
Yeah.
Is this where it gets bumpy? Bumpy and we go on a roller coaster ride?
Yep.
Yeah?
Free Gila chips.
Here we go.
You're white, huh?
It's just pure white. Oh, there's that. That's all you see.
So what we're looking at here is radar returns through the atmosphere, and we're taking whatever the highest reflectivity over the depth is, and then I'm putting it onto our web display so that we know what the radar signatures are, where the aircraft is located. And I fetch this every minute, so that as storms are moving, as the whole system is moving, we can change our flight path to accommodate.
We have two cameras, so you have a picture of two different angles. So we have a normal image and one that's kind of a weird image, where you can see a little bit more detail.
So she was just saying hers is very similar to his, but they're seconds.
So that was so this is like longer term kind of.
I think so, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll see you. Yep.
What's the difference between flying a regular plane and like this plane, like in this condition, would you say?
Well, the biggest difference is this particular project, Impacts, usually flies in weather that most planes go around. You guys probably weren't on the radios, but the ATC would say, hey, there's moderate to heavy precipitation along your route for the next 100 miles. Let me know if you want to deviate, because that's the standard plan, is to go around this kind of stuff. So that's really the biggest difference.
What do you think like the most interesting thing about being a pilot is?
You get to see a lot of the world. And so the things you look at in Google Maps or the things you look at on a globe or on a Mercator projection, you actually look down and you see it for real. So we've flown all over the place.
I do pilot training. That's my full-time job. So I'm here to support NASA as an additional co-pilot and learn all these things that John has to say, because this isn't what I usually do. I'm teaching pilots how to fly. So that's where I spend most of my time. I love flying. I would say cloud surfing is the best part of our job. If you're going to be looking down at the earth, just looking down on clouds, it's like cotton balls. It's so beautiful.
She's our aircraft expert, our adult supervision.
Science.
How would you advise these fine young ladies to maybe wind up someday in your seat?
Always maintain a will to learn. I mean, it's not about the grades or the study, get an A on the next test. That's important, but it's the natural urge to go look that up, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, whatever. I still do that. I still go look stuff up. The guys downstairs will bring something up in the science, and I'm like, I don't know what a dendrite is. What's a dendrite? No, I don't.
I had a very different route. I had no intention of doing it when I started college. I just wanted to go get my business degree and then go off and do that. But this is where I ended up, and it became my passion.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks for suffering through 8 hours of lunch.
It was good. It was really
long legs out.
We were expecting so much worse. Like I said earlier, we were like, I was like, we're gonna die on this airplane.
If it makes you feel better, my family, every time I tell them I'm doing this, they're like, are you gonna make it back?
Oh, yeah.
I think we make it back.
Yeah. Thank you guys for such an awesome experience today. So we appreciate it.
So what made you want to get high school students kind of connected with this project?
You know, I wanted to bring this kind of opportunity to you guys because it's something that happened to me as well. You know, when I was in my first year of university, I also had the opportunity to do something like this. Not at this level, because, you know, this is a major campaign. This is, 2 airplanes. There's a lot of people, a lot of scientists. I wanted to invite you guys to be part of this because I want you guys to fall in love with science as well. And, we need more people like you guys to be, in love with science and participate in science. So I'm hoping that this experience gives you like a different view of how wonderful science is, how wonderful it is to participate with all these people, talk to the scientists and experience what what work for them is. And it's, it's not work, it's just like they're having fun every day. And you get to experience it, right? Just like, how you guys were flying on the P3. We penetrated clouds, we were seeing how the cloud particles were coming into our instrument. This is a flying laboratory. We're flying, we're taking samples. We're not mixing things, but we are making real-time observations. And that really got me excited. And it still gets me really excited. I'm really happy to, participate, and I'm really happy that you guys were able to participate in it too.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that more interactive experience is really what gets you wanting to do and learn more about this kind of field.
It was my purpose to bring students to this campaign to make sure that, this experience gets translated to you guys.
I kind of saw you in the summer earlier in the Boulder trip, and I noticed that and like also yesterday, there's obviously been a couple issues and things that didn't go as planned. So I want to know, like, what kind of is going through your head when things aren't always going as planned?
Oh, that's a tough thing. First, you're like, your mind goes blank, like, what happened? And then you have to calm down and think, okay, what are my alternative plans? So you do have to think on your feet, and luckily I'm not alone. It's not like I have to think of everything and I have to make all the decisions right now. I usually look to the rest of my team, especially the mission scientists, the other scientists who are like, what can we do instead? If we can't fly when we want to, but we can fly this other time, well, what kind of science can we get? Okay, we can get something good, let's go then. Even though it's not my favorite time, so that could be one problem. We could have a problem with the aircraft. We designed before we started the project what we call a go, no-go chart. So there are certain criteria that need to be met, and if they're not met, then we're not going to go. And that does include particular instruments have to be operating. It's a hard thing, like to be faced with something less than ideal, but we still go ahead and try to make the best of what we can work with.
And you actually get to experience a little bit because you flew. We took off at 4 in the morning, I remember. We took off at 4 in the morning. I mean, getting up at 4 in the morning, getting ready to go fly, getting ready to go and collect your measurements at such an early time. It takes some effort. But you guys showed up over here and super excited and willing to do everything. It's just it's very it's a great commitment to science. Did you have any good conversations when you were flying? Like there's instruments, people were collecting their samples, they were seeing what was coming into their computer. Did you have good conversations during flight?
Yeah, the whole experience overall was really amazing. But I got to talk to a few of the scientists that were using kind of their instruments to study what we were getting while we were flying. And I got to talk to someone, they were studying basically like the particles in the snow and like all this other cool stuff. And they talked about also how there was like water in the air and it was below 0 and somehow it still like wasn't frozen. And that was really cool also. And then we talked to a few other people and it really reminded me of the kind of projects that we got to do in class with our Arduinos.
Very cool.
I think it's very inspiring as a woman to see other women in this control environment. So what words of encouragement do you have for our generation and for women and girls trying to get into these STEM occupations?
Yes, I'm so happy that you feel it's inspiring. My own career had many moments like do I keep going? This is so hard. And I kept thinking, no, I need to stay here. You never know where I can do next, and maybe it'll inspire the next generation. It takes a lot of determination and perseverance and being able to deal with things not going your own way. I also found along my pathway, you just keep talking to other people and identify others you can work with who treat you with respect. So it wasn't everybody that was like that, but I did find the ones that did. And I said, I'm gonna work with them. And so I don't feel completely alone and lost in this. So find your peers. And what's really inspiring to me is when I look at your generation, there are a lot of women among there. So there's a lot of people who can be supportive. So, and it can be any gender, any person of any background can be a supportive person, and just find them and work with them. And so my advice is takes perseverance, do the best, do the much background as you can to be strong so that you're a good scientist, you're a great scientist. Don't give up on that part, but look for others that you can talk to and lean on to support you in those tough times.
Well, what do you think your friends and back at home are gonna ask you for this experience?
I think they're definitely gonna be like, what did you do out there? Why did you go? And I know they won't really understand everything I tell them, but I'm gonna definitely tell them I got to fly on this really amazing plane and meet lots of amazing people who are doing things that I'm doing, but in a much larger scale.
Yeah.
And it's just really, it's really inspiring to see that.
That's awesome. That makes me feel really, really well. And I think it's a mission accomplished for this, this experience for you guys. So I'm really happy that you guys had a good time. And this is not the end. You're just in high school, so you're just finishing. And I want you to remind everybody else that there's opportunities. This is just one of them. As you advance in your career, as you advance in, finishing high school, getting to college, there's opportunities to participate in these type of campaigns. There's opportunities to do internships with scientists. Did you talk to any of the students that participate in the campaign, like one of the PhD students, or?
We talked so before we went on the flight, I think the first day we were here, I talked to someone from the University of North Dakota.
North Dakota, yep.
Yeah, and she was just telling us about how she's collected all this data and all the flights she's been on and stuff. So that was really cool to hear about.
So her, for example, she's gonna be using that data to write her PhD thesis. And her name is going to be in scientific publications about the data that she's collecting over here. So that's how scientists kind of build their own reputation in the students. So that this experience can be on your resume, and it will help you open the doors to science and opportunities as well.
Do I get to ask you questions?
Yes. Yeah. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, sure. You and also your colleagues. You're in high school now, and that's a time in your life where it's 1,000 directions to go. So has this project helped you think about where you want to be next?
Before this project, I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. I've always wanted that. I've always known that.
Yeah.
But this definitely has for sure put me in this just makes me want to work for NASA even more. I love this so much.
Great.
And this has really shown me, it's been so inspiring, and
yeah,
it's just so cool to me.
Yeah, and there's a lot of directions to go. There's a lot of different ways to work for NASA. So aerospace is one of them.
Yeah.
You can design satellites. You can be a scientist. You can do anything.
This campaign and being here has really showed me that it's not really one box. It's you don't have to fit in this one box to work for NASA. You can be anyone. You can be a pilot. You can be a scientist. You can be literally anyone, and
you can make balloons.
Yeah, you can make balloons, and you can work here, and it's just so inspiring.
Right. It is hard work to get there, and people often get scared of the math and science. Oh, that's so scary, but don't give up. I mean, when I teach these kind of things or things that require math and science, don't think if it's not easy, it doesn't mean you're dumb or something. It just means this is a tough topic, and you'll have to go after it over and over again. You'll have a lot of frustrations, but don't worry, you'll get there. And you can actually do filming and writing and be a journalist and be part of NASA. You can have a background in art and you can be part of NASA. Those backgrounds, which we think of as liberal arts, those are strong and necessary background too, and lots of ways you can use that. So I'm looking forward to seeing you either behind the wheel, behind the whatever they call that. It's not a wheel. It's all these different things that operate the aircraft. Maybe you'll be a pilot. You never know. So excellent. I'm thrilled that you guys all came, and hope that we're inspiring more than just you guys, but everybody.
Thank you for this opportunity, and just thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you too.
While I've been here, I've noticed a lot also is like the people who work here, it definitely wasn't like a linear path to NASA. They started somewhere totally different and they ended up here, but they really love it here.
Yeah.
And I think that's just really amazing.
It's true, you know, I mean, I come from Mexico, and I remember seeing the first launches to the space station, to the moon. I remember seeing them on TV, and as a little kid, and thinking like, well, I wish one day I'm gonna work for NASA, and you know, I'm here, so it's kind of like a dream come true, and I'm so excited, and I'm trying to bring that excitement to you guys. You guys are the next generation, so I hope you can take us to the moon, to Mars, and beyond.
Thank you. This experience has been just really inspiring. I mean, our pilot the other day, I thought that was really cool that she was like a woman. I know.
Yes, yeah.
And also, I just think your story is really cool as well. So that just like anybody can do what they want as long as you can work for it.
Right. If you want to give any advice to the students nowadays, it's just do what makes you happy, and if it makes you happy, you know, the happiness radiates around you, and success will come your way.